an afternoon conference. Well, as I was walking in my local park, looking for inspiration for my speech, I kept meeting people who amazingly reinforced exactly the things I already think, which was enormously convenient. You know, there is a reason why politicians, with increasing desperation and to increasing ridicule, want to seem in touch with what real people think. They are panicked by the rise of the populists with a beer or a whiskey in one hand, a simplistic solution in the other, and always wrapped in a flag. And I understand that panic. Last month, we came closer than any of us would like to admit to seeing the breakup of the United Kingdom, and mostly not because people bought into a narrow nationalism, but because of a justified anger at establishment politics. It's not principally that those in politics are out of touch or don't get it. It's that politics doesn't deliver. It disappoints. I mean, maybe it always did, but not like this. Nowhere near. You see, I think politics today disappoints because globalization has made many people feel powerless, insecure, uncertain. And as the world changes, they don't see their politicians doing enough to protect them, provide for them, or liberate them. And don't get me wrong, the rewards of globalization are real. The free movement of people, of capital, of ideas have all made our society better, and liberals should always defend that freedom. But if you lose your job through cheaper labour on another continent, if you lose your home through currency changes and interest rate hikes, if you lose your pension through decisions made by faraway bankers, well, you could be forgiven for thinking that globalisation hasn't really worked for you. And so it is no wonder that many feel it's time for a change, any change. It's no wonder that people feel attracted to a pitch that says, well, we can pull up the drawbridge. We could close ourselves off from the world. Our problems come from immigration. Poverty around the world isn't our concern. Climate change? It's a myth. Maybe somehow there's a path to a better Britain by pretending we are alone in the world. Maybe somehow we can insulate ourselves from the impact of global change. Maybe only if you're living in a state of delirious fantasy. In fact, Britain's future relies not on turning away the best and the brightest from our shores, relies not on attacking migrants. Migrants who make a net contribution to our economy. Migrants who are less likely to claim benefits than our own citizens. Instead, we should be grateful and proud that migrants have chosen to relocate their lives here and are working to build our economy. These are the people who make Britain great. We should celebrate them, not demonise them. Now, Britain's future also relies not on decrying foreign aid, but instead in recognising that we have a responsibility to the very poorest people in the world. Because when we invest today to train a doctor, build a school or vaccinate a child, we make a difference to others, and we proudly reinforce Britain's own dignity and decency. Britain's future literally relies not on pretending that climate change is a vast global conspiracy concocted by 97% of the world's scientists. But instead, recognising that it is an existential threat that we should be doing everything in our power to halt. And I passionately believe that we can and must win these arguments, because I believe that people know that Britain's future is as an open, inclusive society. And we have to win these arguments because the nationalism, isolationism and misanthropy of UKIP and the Tories is a serious threat, and it needs to be treated as such. Liberal Democrats alone in the European elections recognised that, and we took nationalism on. While Cameron pandered and Miliband panicked, you can't win an argument if you aren't willing to have it. And the other parties, well, they ducked it for far too long. You see, patriots love their country. Nationalists hate their neighbours. Nationalists of all colours dodge the real political issues and they displace all blame for our predicament onto others. People who are different because of their race, their passport, their class, their accent, their faith, their sexuality. So here's the challenge to us. The challenge to liberals, the challenge to liberalism. We will not win those arguments if we allow ourselves to be part of the Labour-Tory consensus. Because it is a consensus that says that governments are powerless, that the state must get out of the way, that people are on their own. You see, the problem is not globalisation. It is Britain's response to it and our attitude to the role of government. Globalisation does not need to create the vulnerability that people are feeling. The problem that globalisation has happened, the problem is that globalisation has happened in this era of British politics when the consensus has been for passive, can't-do government. Government that backs away, that keeps its hands off the economy, that leaves its citizens to the ravages of the unfair, unfree, unregulated market. That post-79 consensus, set by Mrs Thatcher and turbocharged by New Labour, and clung to by too many others. It has neutered British government. The unfair market, the unfree market, the Tory laissez-faire market, it is a clunking dead hand that damages business and growth just as much as state socialism. And it leaves everyone. And it leaves everyone behind except the wealthiest in our society. And everyone else is at the mercies of a globalised economy. That is why people feel vulnerable, angry and disillusioned. That is why people are repelled by dull, managerialist parties. It's why they are attracted to silver-tongued separatists. And that is why I am bored with small C Conservatives in more than one political party banging the drum for small government. Because I say, small government means weak citizens. And it is the reason why, in the eyes of too many people, governments just don't even seem to govern, they just spectate. I tell you what, I didn't get into politics to spectate. I got into politics to do something, and so did you. I want active, ambitious, liberal government that identifies problems and seeks to fix them, taking Keynes and Beveridge into the 21st century. And believe me, if we don't do this, nobody else will. Have you ever seen a more miserable, uninspiring, tired, backward-looking sight than those two old parties meeting over the previous 2 weeks? All the passion and conviction of a convention of Breville sandwich maker salespersons. Ed Miliband got loads of stick for only remembering half of his speech, but that is still 50% more than the rest of us remembered. What? While the Tories' major announcement was to scrap the Human Rights Act. Because, and here's the quote, people get very frustrated with human rights. Mr. Cameron, which of these do you find especially frustrating? The right to life, the ban on torture, protection against slavery, the right to a fair trial, respect for freedom, of privacy, of thought, of religion, of free speech, of peaceful protest. These are not frustrations. These are integral to what it is to be British. And I'll tell you what, they are the legacy of Winston Churchill. And seeing the Tories trashing his legacy, I am in no doubt that today he would once again be a Liberal. I'm sorry. Mr. Cameron, you too may be Prime Minister, but you are no statesman. So it was Back to the Future with Labour, as they reheated a failed socialist ideology, and it was Back to the Future with the Tories as they reheated the failures of Thatcherism. But here's the thing, an awful lot more unites them than divides them. Tories and Labour both saying we shouldn't be investing more, and we know that we literally need to build our way to the jobs and growth that deliver economic security, not least the houses we so desperately need to tackle the crisis of affordable homes in our country. Tories and Labour both saying that they will kick the ladders of support away from our young people by engaging in an arms race over who can be the toughest on cutting benefits for the under-25s, when we know that young people need jobs and opportunities, not penalties and punishment. And Tories and Labour both saying they will be tougher on migrants. But we will damage our economy if we make the wrong choices on visas and make our country a harder place to do business. And Tories and Labour, as always, failing to grasp the scale of the threat from climate change, unwilling to make any of the tough decisions to protect our environment for future generations. Britain deserves better than this dismal lack of choice. And there is nobody but you and me to provide a genuine alternative. An alternative that takes seriously the concerns and fears of an uncertain world. An alternative that doesn't pander, doesn't just tell people what they want to hear, but an alternative that offers real, genuine solutions, only possible with a Liberal government that is active and ambitious. You can be proud of what you have achieved. Abraham Lincoln said, all men can stand adversity. If you want to test a man's character, give him power. Well, our character has been tested and we have not been found wanting. We stand proudly on our record, fixing Labour's economic mess only possible because we had the guts to go into government and then, in government, successfully fighting for the investment needed to kickstart the economic recovery. The result, 2 million new jobs, tens of thousands of families secure in their homes, not repossessed. Thousands of businesses alive and blooming. That is the real-life consequence of that tough decision to take power. And just imagine if we'd let the Tories go it alone. Who seriously thinks that the Tories would have introduced the pupil premium without us? The policy that has given £2.5 billion to the schools that Tories don't send their kids to. Who seriously thinks that the Tories would have raised the tax threshold, giving an £800 tax cut to the 24 million workers least likely to vote Tory? Who seriously thinks that the Tories would have given freedom to the 3,500 children of asylum seekers who would have been held in detention? 3,500 children who will never know what horrors they were spared, nor who to thank for being spared them. I doubt that Nick Clegg won a single vote for ending that shameful detention of innocent children, but it is in moments like that when you see a man's integrity. It is in moments like that when you see that winning elections and taking power is more than worthwhile. It is essential. So while being proud of our record, let's also be very clear about this. People vote with their eyes fixed forward, not looking over their shoulders. They are not interested in the past, they are interested in the future. Their votes depend on what happens next, not what happened last. Looking back alone will not win us a single seat next May, and believe me, our challenge next May is not just to win seats in Parliament and in local government. It is to win the right to build a new consensus for a government that does not spectate, but sets its sights high for our country, that doesn't walk on by, for government that is liberal, green, internationalist, competent with our economy, compassionate with our society. Every leaflet you deliver, every door you knock upon, every stakeboard you put up, every donation you make, everything you do this next 6 months is about building a new consensus. A new consensus for a Britain that can be at ease in a community of nations in a global economy. A nation where people feel that they matter because they do matter. Where our liberties and our livelihoods will be protected by a government that is on our side. So, we must ensure that our economic policies are comprehensively liberal. And that means being prudent and wise and living within our means when it comes to revenue spending. And it also means opening the door as wide as we can on capital spending to transform Britain's infrastructure. If we want people to be free, and we want to free them and defend them against the harsh winds of globalisation, then we must literally build a better country. It is time to open up the potential of all of the people and all of the places in this country. 30 years of passive, inactive government has left us with a massive housing crisis. The right to buy without a duty to build has devastated our communities. We have ludicrous house prices and an overheated private rented sector. That is why, in the next decade, we will need a national mission to provide 3 million new homes to prevent nothing less than a return to the squalor that Beveridge sought to eradicate. So it's time to let housing associations and local government off the leash and let them build. Let it be us who make that happen. And 30 years of passive, inactive government means that our country is hopelessly and damagingly economically unbalanced. While we put opportunity upon opportunity on a minority of people who live in the right place, went to the right schools, have the right parents, and restrict opportunities to everybody else, we prevent Britain being all that it could be. It is ludicrous that our largest city is more than 7 times bigger than our second largest city. So many of the social problems in London and outside London rest on the fact that London matters far too much for its own good and for the country's good. So we need to liberate the potential of the rest of Britain so that we can attract investment and jobs and give opportunities to our young people without needing for them to move to the other end of the country. And nothing more will rebalance our economy than to bring our towns and cities closer together with faster rail links. So we have got to deliver HS2. Now, I know the intellectual heavyweights in UKIP won't like this, presumably because it increases the chances of people coming to your town who might not be from your town. And some of them might be foreign. But the threat to this project comes from Labour too. Ed Balls has repeatedly tried to kill it off. But this scheme is vital for our country. There is an alternative to HS2, but it is to build more and more motorways, increasing congestion, damaging the environment. And don't be fooled that it's all about speed. In fact, the way it's been sometimes sold has been a little patronising occasionally, as if all we northerners needed to achieve economic and personal fulfilment was to be able to get to London a little bit quicker. Do not flatter yourselves. A new north-south rail link is less about speed, it's about capacity. Getting those longer journeys by high-speed trains into a new line so we can tackle horrendous overcrowding that people face as they commute into and out of our towns and cities to work. But we cannot stop at HS2. We have to tackle east-west links in the UK too. So we should be planning not just HS2, but HS3, 4 and 5 as well, starting with a high-speed link between Hull and Liverpool through Bradford, Leeds and Manchester, connecting east and west as quickly and as seamlessly as we connect north and south. Let us be the people who make that happen. And up to 2010, we've had 30 years of passive, inactive government that has meant a frankly pathetic response to the greatest crisis facing humanity, climate change. Reducing greenhouse gases by 80% by 2050 is just not good enough when only 100% will do. For pity's sake, what is the point in aiming to do less than we need to do? What sort of mission is satisfied with failure? And any target is pointless without proper action. So let's be massively more ambitious with a green investment bank, greater capitalisation, allowing it to issue green bonds to raise money on the markets, There must be a green economic boom with government investment in renewables so that 60% of our electricity will be carbon-free by 2030 and all of it carbon-free by 2050. Let's transform the Green Deal and have every single home in Britain an energy efficiency makeover, eradicating fuel poverty and halving demand for energy by 2030. We should be proud of Ed Davey's leadership, and we should claim a green future that is optimistic and inspiring, because winning the war on climate change is not about hair shirts and austerity. It is about a positive, innovative, hugely motivating mission to beat catastrophe and boost Britain's economy. If you are not pro-green, you are not pro-business. And let's be the people who make that happen, eh? And all of this is only possible through ambitious, active liberalism, only achievable with an ambitious, active, liberal government. These are ambitious goals, but liberalism has been active and ambitious before. Liberalism in Britain gave us universal suffrage, the abolition of the death penalty, freedom of religion, the old age pension, the welfare state, healthcare free at the point of use, LGBT equality, all things we take for granted, all things won by Liberals in this party and beyond. We should be proud and encouraged by these victories. Britain is better because of you. But we know that there are more battles to be fought and won. Just look at how far we still have to go to achieve real equality. You might remember last month, Emma Watson spoke at the United Nations, and she gave a passionate call for men to join the fight for gender equality. It was met with vile threats and a barrage of personal abuse. In 2014, women still too often are paid less, represented less, and matter less. That is a moral outrage. But you know as well as I do that our politics and our party do not yet reflect the society we represent either. And that is unacceptable. And we are going to redouble our efforts to change it. Now, last year my daughter started secondary school. She is brighter, more beautiful, more decent than you would ever expect, given that she is my daughter. She has inherited my football team, otherwise she's got everything going for her. And I want her to know that nothing is beyond her. Nothing's beyond her reach, that she's capable of being anyone and doing anything that she wants, that there is no glass ceiling that cannot be broken, and I want men to be part of making that happen too. You see, the challenges that Britain faces are big, but Britain's politics is small. Never has it been more essential that Britain has a strong Liberal Party, this Liberal Party. So let's get behind an ambitious, active liberalism that captures the imagination of the country. Let's say to Britain, there is a future that we can all get behind. We will not compete with the silver-tongued populists by being pale imitations of them. We have to be the people calling for wisdom amidst the hysteria, calling for hope amidst the fear, calling for ambition amidst apathy. We will not blame our plight on foreigners, people on benefits, or green crap. We will offer our vision for a greener, fairer, better, dynamic and more liberal nation, for government that does not wash its hands but rolls up its sleeves, for active, ambitious, liberal government. If you get that, if you want that, this is our opportunity. This is the liberal moment. Let's grab it. Thank you.